Welcome to the 24K Life podcast. I'm your host, Derick Gant. You know, we here at the 24K Life look and are seriously intending to bring you amazing people that help you alter, improve not only your cash flow, because we do talk about money a lot, but your entire lifestyle. And today is no different. We are bringing you Anthony Kuo, who is a career development expert. Are you unhappy with what you're doing? What percentage of people, we're going to ask Anthony, but what percentage of you are unhappy doing what you're doing? Or you're out there and you're doing a job search, but are you really searching for what you want or what you need? Are you going to sustain your life wherever you land? We're going to talk about all that, but we want you to like, share, and if you haven't subscribed yet to our podcast, we're asking you nicely to like, share, and subscribe. It's part of how we show our value. It's how we get to more people, because the bigger we are, the farther we can spread the word. Anthony, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome, man. Happy to have you. We had on the young lady before that talked about how to get a job, and a high paying job with very few interviews. You know, you watched that episode and said, man, I got to add to that. I'm the follow up to her. That was Annie Margarita Yang. And you said, I need to follow up what she started to help people really close the gap in the circle. So tell me about your business and your passion.
Yeah, I mean, that podcast was great, right? She was on point with a lot of the tactical stuff you need to get a job. She shared a lot of great shortcuts to cut through a lot of the BS that you find when you're looking for a job.
Right.
And it begs the question, if you're going to go look for a job, what job are you going to go for? Right. So that's the question that I like to answer with my clients and in my practice. I'm a career satisfaction coach. And so where other people, it's a very natural knee-jerk reaction to when you're unhappy in your job to be like, I got to get a new job. I got to get my resume tied up. I got to go interview places. I got to go apply to things. And if we're not aware of what's going on the inside, and if we're not aware of what exactly is going to help your situation, what exactly is going to help you feel more satisfied in the next job, if you're not super clear on that, then you're at risk of repeating the same pattern over and over again when you apply. And that's super frustrating, right? So what I do is I help people figure out what they need to thrive so you can go create that in your life.
So how did that become your thing, man? And how did you become good at it? So how did it become your thing? One question at a time.
Yeah.
How did that become your thing? Because that's an interesting position to take to help people.
Yeah, I mean, this is a personal journey for me. Right? Because I was climbing up the ladder in the corporate world. I was very successful. I was doing the whole American dream thing, right? I went to school, got good grades, got a good job, Fortune 500 company, good salary, bought a house, bought a car, all the things. I was checking all the boxes. And I was being promoted rapidly because I was doing all the right stuff. I was using my skills and people were finding it valuable. And at the same time, on the inside, I was like, what the hell, man? There's got to be more than this. Because I would come home every single day, totally wiped, even though I wasn't like working that hard at work. You know, I was efficient about my time. But I would come home and I couldn't do anything but flop onto my couch and binge watch like Breaking Bad or Dexter and giving myself like murder dreams. You know, like that was the extent of what I could do. And, you know, at first it was okay, but then over time it just started to be like, it became an existential crisis because I was like, I've done everything right. Why the hell am I not happier? Why is it not doing it for me? And at first I thought there was something wrong with me. Right?
Really? Why did you think something was wrong with you? Didn't you realize that most people are mundane and settling into mediocrity? I mean, I just assume that everybody knows that.
Well, it's a very, very common experience, right? So you asked the question at the beginning, how many people are unsatisfied with their jobs? I have an actual number for you. It's 44%.
I know you did. I just intuitively, you can't be who you are and not have that number.
It's 44%, according to the Gallup poll that was conducted last year, which is a lot, right? It's almost half, which means like if you go to the office and look at the person next to you, chances are real good that they are unhappy with their job. And if you're also unhappy, then they're right there with you. The problem is that we're not really allowed to talk about it.
Oh, not
openly, right? Like, have you ever heard like, that's not a good look, don't say that, right? Or have you ever been afraid to speak your mind because what if your employer or your coworkers find out you're throwing shade at them, right?
Right.
So you keep it in. And so that's what I was doing. I didn't know that everyone else around me was also having that experience. I thought it was me. And it was made especially worse because I was actually doing well, right? On the outside, everything was good. It's not like I was being treated poorly.
Right.
I had a job that respected me. My coworkers, came to me for my opinions. They sought my input. They treated me well. They paid me well. They were promoting me. Everything was good.
Everything was good, but you were unhappy.
Except for what I was experiencing on the inside.
So tell me how you decided to, did you have an aha moment and go, I need to be happier and I have to make a change? Or how did that transition come about?
Yeah. So I had batted around these ideas in my head for a long time, for several years, in fact. And none of it really took form until one day in particular, where I was like, finally, it's time to go for it. And I was, I was driving home from work, and I went to the liquor store to just pick up some beer because a friend was coming over and just wanted to kick back. And as I was pulling out of the parking lot, my car, I did a little love tap with the car behind me. And I didn't think very much of it because I live in New York City. That sort of thing happens all the time.
Right.
But there was somebody else who saw it, and they were like, oh my God, there was a hit and run. So they called the cops, and the whole thing turned a tiny little molehill into a giant mountain. And they wanted to throw the book at me. And to make a very long story short, I was so infuriated by this whole experience, right? It felt so unfair. I felt so persecuted for something so inconsequential. There was no actual damage. It was just they were like, you left the scene. And I was like, what scene? Right.
Right.
Anyway, good lawyer made that all go away. But what does it have to do with my work? And what does it have to do with everything? I was reverse commuting from New York City to New Jersey every day. And, I was spending 2.5 hours commuting each day. And for me, that incident crystallized all of my lingering dissatisfaction. What am I going to do with my life? And the car became the symbol for everything that was wrong in my life.
Because you had to get in and go to work.
Yep.
Okay.
I didn't want to go to New Jersey. I went to NYU. I wanted to have a career, have a life in the city, and there I was going to work in New Jersey.
So did you go from the commute and that particular job in Jersey to doing what you do now, or was there something in between that bridge?
Yeah, I mean, the context behind that is that I was already laying the groundwork without even realizing.
Okay.
My favorite part of the job was not even part of my job description. It was mentoring people. It was helping my friends and colleagues with their resumes and how to present themselves, right? Because I had kind of this uncanny ability to navigate the workplace. And so, I was more than happy to help my friends be like, hey, you might want to present yourself this way. And, oh, by the way, that really awesome project that you worked on, you're not even mentioning it in your resume. Let's get that front and center, right? And, oh, by the way, you should meet this person who is hiring for exactly what you do and just, hook them up.
Right.
And I was already doing that. And then one thing led to another where I'd help a friend, and then they'd be like, well, could you help my friend? Right. And I would do it for free at first. And then at a certain point, I was like, maybe I should start charging for this, because this is starting to take up some time.
Yeah. So what did you start charging?
I mean, I started charging like $50, you know, like nothing, but something.
Right.
I was just getting started.
That's awesome, man. So tell us, we know how it started. We know how you got where you are, which is, you know, we all have those I like it. You said crystallizing moments that it all kind of comes together. But tell me about what you define a satisfaction coach and how you actually deliver that. So I'm working for a manufacturing firm. I'm in sales. I need to find a new gig for whatever the reason, and I hire you. What do I get? What do I expect? What's the process?
Yeah. So I think it's really useful to make explicit our working definition of words, right? So career satisfaction, what does that mean? Yeah. To me, career satisfaction is what happens when you are in an environment and in a context where your personality and all the wonderful quirks and strengths and shortfalls that come from just who you are naturally as a human being when you're having a good day, when you're in a context and an environment that values and appreciates that, you get to just be you. You get to just express yourself, right? Because it's very, very tiring to pretend to be somebody or something that you're not. And that's what ends up actually burning a lot of people out, is when you're having to pretend. So career satisfaction comes from figuring out first who you are, what you need in order to support who you are, what kind of environment and context is going to allow that, and not only that, appreciate it, and then where can you find that? How do you make that a reality? So when I start working with people, it's we go through that process. So first, we develop what I call a care card, which is, I've got all these plants behind me. I have plants all over my apartment. It just brings me joy. And the nice thing about plants is that when you buy one, it usually comes with a little card that says, hey, I need this much light. I need this much water.
Dude, that is so cool.
Right?
That's a great connection right there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Keep going, bro.
Yeah.
It's just dynamic. That is amazing. What's on your care card? I love that. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah. So what's on your care card, right? Because what is going to be on my care card is going to be different from what's on your care card. It's going to be different from the next person's care card. So what's on yours? And if we can make a very clear and operational language for you to understand what exactly you need, that gives you the ability to do a whole bunch of really important stuff. Not least being, number one, being able to diagnose your current situation, right? A lot of the time when people are unhappy, you don't know why. You just know that you're unhappy and it's a problem. But having your care card lets you know, oh, this plant is being put in too bright a light. That's why its leaves are burning, right? You're getting sunspots, right? Or in the case of a career, like you're somebody who prefers to work on a team and you're really collaborative and you're being stuck in the closet at work by yourself, right? So when you have that very clear operational language that you can use, you can diagnose what's going on. You can also start to identify green flags and red flags and opportunities. You can start to evaluate what's in front of you, right? Because I hear it all the time, like, oh, I have all these ideas of what I could do, right? I could start a business. I could go into this job. I could go into that field. Cool. And how do you know without actually doing it, right?
Right. So you start with the care card, you do a diagnosis, or you help the person do a diagnosis on them, self-diagnosis, so that they can figure out what's on their card. I was listening to you, man, but I was already thinking, what's on my card? Like, water me weekly.
Yeah.
I don't need daily water.
Yeah.
Plenty of sunshine, sincerity, directness. But it's so cool because you're right. If you could do a self-diagnosis and actually give somebody a card and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for in employment. And by the way, I'm going to blossom and bloom, which is going to make your business better.
Yep.
That's super dope. Now, when I spoke on your intro, I clearly misspoke because our listeners need to see you first. They need to see you first, and they need to figure out the self-diagnosis. What are they looking for? What's going to make them happy? What environment are they going to blossom in? And by blossoming, I mean be able to produce great work and be able to produce great return, which is your paycheck. And then go to the step 2, which is how do you go get that aggressively? So I misspoke to that. So I want to make sure everybody understands, not that they were listening that closely, but listen, you need to see this guy first, and then go check out Annie Margarita Yang. And she can help you figure out how to do it super easy and get what you think you're worth. So my next question, man, is about the sustainability. When what was the transition? Did you just quit and start and then took your $50 to $500, or did you make a slow transition? You said you were in corporate America, you were doing really well, you kept getting promoted. So, and you're in New York. So we know that you're either doing 6 figures or something close to live in New York. So
it ain't cheap here.
It's not cheap there. So tell us about that transition for entrepreneurs or for people that are in a 9-to-5 and they are feeling like you felt, and they're looking and they think they might want to work from home. You know, the pandemic presented a lot of people going, man, I could just do this at home. So what was your transition financially?
Yeah. So financially, it was a whole thing. We'll just put it that way. Right. Because I had actually a 2-year plan in place where I'd signed up with the job and was like, I'm going to give it a fair 2-year shake. And if it doesn't work, then at least I gave it a shake. Right. And my plan at that point was to just be like, well, maybe I can start slowly building up a client base and sock away some money because I know I'm going to need that war chest to like carry me over. That whole incident with the car accident and all that happened like 8 months in. And so all of a sudden I was stuck with this choice, like, do I leave now or do I wait it out? And the more I sat with it, the more miserable I felt at the prospect of waiting it out through no real fault of the company, right? They were treating me well, they were respecting me, etc.
Right.
Paying me well.
Right.
And so I was like, do I walk away from this sure thing that is paying me versus,
I feel you, man. It's like saying, hey, there's this amazing opportunity and I need to, do 1, 2, and 3 before I go check it out, which is a criteria you put in your head, or do I just go for it? Because it's right there. And it's exactly what I want. So what did you decide?
So I left.
My man.
I took the leap.
Okay. And how long ago was that leap?
That was in 2018. So 6 years ago now.
Wow, man, time flies. So 6 years ago.
Right? Well, three of those years were a time warp. So,
well, that's true. So obviously, you're happy with that decision.
Very happy.
And you've survived, and you're surviving. And are you thriving in your business?
I am surviving, and I am also, I dare say, thriving.
Excellent. So, what's the next step for you?
Well, the next step is, I built this business on working with people one-on-one, right? And that was really important because I really enjoyed first learning, right? I had to figure out my method. I've had to experiment. And this is part of the value of charging only $50 and adding very little friction to working with me because I needed to learn. I needed to validate my ideas and my methodology. And so I got that. And then, I started stepping it up and up the more I felt confident. To the point where I now charge like $350, $375 a session. And I'm at a place where I want more impact. I want to be able to share this with a lot more people, a lot more accessibly. Because the more I did it, the more I realized I was having the same conversation over and over and over again, right? People are unhappy in several very predictable ways. The same things drive people up the wall, and the emotional journey is pretty consistent. There are some highs that are very predictable, and there are some lows that are very predictable. And so there I was having this conversation and just being like, y'all should meet. Y'all should be talking to each other.
Right.
Right? Because like I mentioned before, we're not allowed to talk about this stuff out in the open. It's only in whispers with our close friends and family and maybe your therapist.
Right.
Right. So what I wanted to create was a safe, supportive network where people who are really interested in developing their career satisfaction could have this conversation where we could talk about the real stuff.
Okay.
And so what I've been doing the last 1 or 2 years now is doing it in groups, doing it as a like group mentorship program where get a bunch of people together who are on a similar parallel path so you don't feel so alone when you're going through this process.
So how do you find these people that join your group?
I mean, a lot of it is through word of mouth because everyone knows, someone who hates their job. And if you don't know
someone who hates what they can't stand getting up.
Yeah, right?
Monday is madness.
And if you don't know anybody, you are that person.
Yeah, and who are your closest friends to bring them with you?
Right? Right. And look, they're like we can lay it on our friends and family, but there are also limits, right? And also how frustrating it is for you to have to explain yourself. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to explain yourself when you're in a group of people who are all feeling the same way, experiencing the same things. Yeah,
so it's like we got all these people who just get each other implicitly. Like it's amazing whenever somebody new joins, it's like instant recognition, instant like I get you.
Right.
And then what I layer in is the tools, the frameworks, the roadmap to step by step. How do you understand yourself? How do you identify this is where I'm going to get that met? How am I going to make sure that's going to fit into my life so I don't like unnecessarily blow things up?
Right.
And then how do you get there?
Okay. For those of you that are listening, I posted up how to get a hold of Anthony. It is untamedcareer.com. Untamedcareer.com. You can check him out. You can join one of his groups. You can talk to him about some one-on-one consultations. You can figure out how to stop hating your job and figure out what your care card is, because that is a dope ass concept that everybody, you know what? That should come when you get married, when you start dating. It should come when you want a job. Hey, here's my care card, right? They talk about love language. Forget that. Here's my care card. Right?
I'm going to put that on my website. Dope ass concept.
You should, bro. It is dope. That is, what is your care card? How do you help people take care of you? And how do you help them take care of themselves? And this is what you're doing. You're saying, look, how do you want to be watered? How do you want to best blossom? Maybe you don't want any water. Maybe you just want an ice cube. And don't you put like ice cubes in lilies and let them melt? You don't even water them.
That's what my mom does with orchids. She is a genius.
Not lilies, orchids. Yes.
Yeah. And like when I was a kid, she'd ask me to water her plants whenever she went on a trip or something. And invariably, poor 12-year-old me and these plants, I would like overwater them, drown them, and they all die. And my mom like, what did you do? I was like, I don't know. I just watered them. You told me to water them. I watered them. Now we know better, right?
Now we know better.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, man, that based on the fee, the prices that you mentioned, you charge now, it is well worth the investment, man. I mean, it is well worth the investment for you to take a time out, for a person to take a time out that is suffering in quiet desperation. That's what I like to call it. I'm a financial consultant, and my people are suffering in quiet financial desperation. And in your case, they're suffering because they don't like their job quietly. So to stop doing that, to understand that it's killing you. Stress kills. And you know what? It's worth the investment. If you can't figure out your care card, if you can't figure out what you truly want and where you want to go, man, spend some time with Anthony. Go to untamedcareer.com and do your work. Invest in yourself and figure out how to make the rest of your years your best years, because that's what we're here to do, is help each other. You heard him say it was his mission, it was his passion, and I commend him for that. Anthony, thank you so much. Is there any parting points of wisdom, 24K points of wisdom, gold nuggets you want to share before you go?
Oh, sure. I'll keep it tight. First one is, I want to give you permission, anyone listening, I want to give you permission to feel your dissatisfaction, right? There's so much out there that's like, be positive, don't manifest negativity, whatever, right? Your dissatisfaction is information. It's telling you something. Something needs to change, right? So without judging it, can you get curious about it? Because that is actually pointing to what is on your care card, what's not getting met, right? So that's often where I start with people, is what's not getting met. So I just want to let you feel okay to access that.
I love it. Thank you, bro. Hold on one sec. All right. I love the concept. I was blessed. I'll put it that way. I've always wanted to talk about finance. I've always wanted to help people. I always want to see people win. I want to see people stack cash. So job is my hobby. My hobby is my job. I just can't get enough of talking about it. Very, very rare from the beginning of my career till now. Still doing the same exact thing, 30 years later. I understand that is a blessing, and most people don't have that luxury. Most people work because they have to. Most people work because they put themselves in a jam and they can't seemingly in their minds get out of it. But what Anthony shared was that just because you're unhappy, just because it's negative, doesn't mean you can't use that as fuel to push yourself to become more aware of what will make you happy, how do you really want to make money? I mean, wouldn't you want to can you imagine the athletes that get to put on gym shoes and shorts and get paid tons of money to do that, and they absolutely love the competition? Football players love the violence. It just is what it is. I used to be a football player, love the violence, right? But I also was very compassionate off the field. So what about you? Why don't you consider what's on your care card, what's not on your care card, and most importantly, do not waste 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or years, as Anthony mentioned, trying to figure that out. Give them a call at untamedcareer.com. Let them help you. I'm Derick Gant. I want you to be your best, bring your best, leave nothing to chance.